What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Heel Report, part of Tar Heel 24/7, and another edition of our Three Things following North Carolina's 95-53 win over Winston-Salem State in an exhibition game. I'm Ryken Fuller. Across from me here in the Dean E. Smith Center on Roy Williams Court is Andrew Jones, as always. Andrew, Carolina gets a 95-53 win in this one. Caleb Wilson, 23 points. We'll talk about him a little bit later. And they came out of the gates really firing. I mean, they came out 15-2. From there, AJ, it became kind of like LA Fitness at 3 p.m. I don't know if people get that reference, but it was back and forth bad. Tell me what you saw during that kind of sluggish stretch, AJ.
It's an exhibition game at home against a Division II team. So you're going to have stuff like that. Keeping their attention for 40 minutes is not the easiest thing in the world. People might say, how can they not be all wired and stuff like that? I think within that, there's some things that can be learned about what happens when you're not totally dialed in, that a club that's picked to finish near the bottom of the CIAA in Division II can actually give you a push. So there is something to learn from this about the need to not drop below that A- level. And they dropped well below. They were like in C- zone there for a while. And that's when there was like a 9-2 run by Winston-Salem State. And there were just some things with the Tar Heels were not quick enough defensively. They were really awful offensively for a stretch. They didn't move well. They were getting pushed around a little bit. It's just they weren't dialed in. So that's going to happen when you're not dialed in. What I did like is that they jumped out 10-0 and 15-2. So they approached the game the right way, but then it seemed so easy for them. I think human nature, sometimes you sort of let up. That's what happened, and it carried into the second half. This game was 39-30. What was the final score? They ended up 39-30, so they outscored them 57-23, or whatever. I guess that's right. I'm probably messing up my math there. They rolled at that point, and they rolled doing a lot of really impressive things. So if this is all about learning and educating and trying to connect one link more before the season actually starts, they got that out of tonight. And for Hubert to win a game by 40 points, he can show his team this is wholly unacceptable. This stretch right here is going to get you beat next Friday against Kansas. Hell, it could get you beat against as something rolls down the aisle like you're under attack. What was that?
Yeah, it was a broom. It's a broom.
Yeah, they're cleaning up here in the Smith Center.
Yeah.
Anybody who's watched these before in the past knows that we encounter all kinds of interesting things when we're here after games. But anyway, Central Arkansas would push them more because they're a Division I team. There's a lot of clubs everybody on their schedule just about either can beat them or push them if they're playing at that level for too long a period of time. So there's education, which is always great. And then we got to see them more, and we're going to talk about here in a minute. They morphed into a much more connected for a version of themselves later in the game, where we saw a lot of stuff with everybody sort of getting their hands into some good stuff in the second half on both ends of the floor. So they worked through it. There's a lot of value to that, but it is October. So people who are going to get hyper fixated about some of the negatives, chill. If you can get super hyper fixated about some of the positives, chill, except Caleb Wilson, because that's a real deal. And we're going to talk about him as well. So I think all in all, Hubert Davis got a lot out of this, probably got more out of it than maybe he expected going in because of that malaise, but they worked out of it. So they got some good stuff from it.
Yeah. And the thing is, basketball is such a funny sport, because if you're playing a, FCS team in football, for example, there's that kind of strength differential. There's a lot of things that go into the disparity between one team and another.
Yeah.
In basketball, if you're not hitting open shots, you're going to struggle against a ranked BYU team. You're going to struggle against a Winston-Salem State team like they did during that stretch, because it's pretty obvious they weren't hitting open shots. And
it's more than that though, too.
Yeah.
They were. It was an even game on the glass with a minute and a half left in the first half. And well into the second half, Winston-Salem State had the edge on the offensive glass. Carolina was boxing out. Winston-Salem State they were shorter, But, man, they were giving them some rear end. They were giving them some hips. They were moving around a little bit. They moved Henry Vessar off the block a couple of times on the offensive end. So, and you're right, though. The three-pointer is the great equalizer if the other team makes it and if your team misses it. And that was a stretch where the Tar Heels gave up a lot of open shots. So you're 100% right. You're going to see, I'm dating myself. This is long before your parents ever knew you were going to exist. Chaminade, Virginia, you going back to the 80s, when Chaminade was an NAIA school and beat number 1 Virginia and Ralph Sampson. That can happen. Crazy stuff can happen on a basketball court, much more so than a football field. So that's part of the education. That's part of the lesson tonight. And hopefully for this team, for their sake, they got that lesson. They see it now, and it won't happen again. Or certainly if it does against a team that they can waltz by without a great deal of energy. But I think it'll require more energy moving forward.
Yeah, and what you're saying about the shots is exactly why we see 15s upset 2s, 16s upset 1s, 13, go down the line in March, because one team, if you're hitting the 3-ball and you can just shoot the lights out, then you can be a struggle for even the best defensive teams. But first half, second half, very different. Carolina started hitting the 3-ball in the second half at a pretty efficient clip. It seemed like they got better at shooting as the game went along. You got threes from multiple different people, and just go down the line of what you saw from a multitude of people, AJ, from behind the arc.
I think we saw a snapshot. If this team is really good, we saw a snapshot of what's going to make them really good on the perimeter. It wasn't just they were hitting shots. These got much better shots. Against BYU, the 3-point, they were 4 for 19 from 3. Maybe a couple were comfortable, but most of the threes they took in the second half tonight were off a pass from somebody. A lot of them were swings. They were passing up good shots to get great. Jonathan Powell passed up an open 3 in the right corner. He did have a defender kind of running at him a little bit. He swung it, and it was wide open 3 on the left wing for Jaren Stevenson. To do that as much as they did on October 29th is a good sign. We've talked a lot about all the parts coming together. It may take a while for them to be fully connected, and I do think that's going to happen. It's going to be the case. You're going to see some periods coming up here in the next month or so where they don't look super connected on the court, because that takes time. But what we did see for a lengthy stretch, and it doesn't matter who your opponent is, when you're swinging the ball like that, when you're unselfish like that, when guys are getting the ball ready to shoot, and there's a lot of catch and shoot dudes on this team, which they've lacked for a while, that to me is a great sign. You can offset a lot of crap that doesn't go your way by being able to swing the ball, get open looks in the perimeter that are comfortable, and knock them down. You're talking Jaren Stevenson hitting a couple again. He hit 2 against BYU. I actually asked him after the game about last year at Alabama. He missed his first 18 three-pointers last year. 3-point attempts. That had to be unbelievably frustrating. So now, even though these are exhibition games, I said it's got to feel good knowing that those have dropped. So you're going into the season without that even weighing over your head. And he agreed, and he did say that, hey, my teammates are fond of me, that kind of thing, and I'm in position to hit the shot. He's also a 6'10" guy shooting the ball from the wing. I mean, no one's going to challenge that shot. Someone may run at him, but they're not going to affect the shot. And he's got a nice shot. And Hubert said tonight, we got to get him the ball more. They got to run more stuff for him, because he has an efficient game. There's a cleanliness to his game that it really stood out tonight. It stood out in some ways the other night, but it really stood out tonight. And part of it is that Jaren doesn't get in the way. Jaren doesn't have to go. He's not one of those guys that hunt shots. And sometimes by doing so, they sort of disrupt possessions. Everything just comes naturally through the flow, and he's ready. He's a ready receiver of the ball when he gets it on the wing and it goes up. And I think that's going to be a real asset for this team throughout the year. And other guys, we had Jaden Young, who's probably the 10th man on this team, knocked down 3 straight threes. Jaren scored 8 straight points. I think Caleb Wilson had a couple free throws, I think a layup or something. And then Jaden Young scored 9 straight points in a minute and a half. So you saw what Michael Young saw last year, the head coach, Mike Young, the head coach at Virginia Tech, when he started drawing stuff up for Jaden late in the year. Well, that's what we saw. He had 27 and 26 in 2 ACC games in a 10-day span in February last year. You saw that tonight. So if he's your 10th guy and he can catch and shoot and he gets rid of the ball quickly, this team is deeper. They can withstand things that might happen that are unconventional and throw them off and force them to go deep in the bench. They can withstand that more than any team Hubert's had previously here. There's just a lot to like about it, and you got to see some of those other guys do that tonight and kind of give you fans a glimpse of what they're capable of moving forward. Disregard the opponent. The fact that those shots came through rhythm stuff, nothing was forced, everything was fluid, everything was clean and natural and comfortable. That's what they want to be moving forward on a perimeter. And I did ask Hubert about that, and he mentions, hey, well, I really want to start offense in the interior, because Hubert's going to give you the whole picture, right? But they get a lot of offense out of the interior as well on the perimeter, and they did get a couple of those threes after the ball went into the post. It came back out to the perimeter, and they were able to swing it and get good looks. The swing stuff to me tonight, I know Caleb's dunk, I know Caleb doing Caleb stuff is fine, but as far as what can stick with you throughout the year, the way that they did that to me is a very positive sign moving forward.
I'm glad you mentioned rhythm at some point in there, because what I noticed, and you notice a lot more sitting courtside under the basket than you do watching from TV. I mean, it is a whole new world. You notice so many small things. But something I noticed is that there was a degree of consistency in the operation of the three-point shooting that was just there in the second half. That wasn't there in the first half. And that, again, plays into the new team factor, the wild passes that we've kind of seen turn into turnovers at BYU a lot, and just the kind of overall recklessness with the ball at times, and not getting it to where a shooter likes it. But you find out with your teammates as you go along in the season where somebody likes it most. You know, there's that shooter's pocket. They're going to find it here where they like to catch and shoot it. And I felt like that operation was more consistent. It was just better in the second half, because they just felt like they were finding the pocket. The guys were there catching and shooting. Some guys pulling up off the dribble, maybe that's what they like more. Just finding out what they like, who they like receiving passes from, just putting the right amount of power on. It's small things that end up working out over the course of a season, especially for a team that has not played together for the most part. And let's stay on this. Let's stay on this for a second, because you bring up a really good point. And I think that they have a lot of catch and shoot guys. And there are times, if you go back to last year, the year before, there are times where the ball starts to get swung on the perimeter, and then I don't really want to get over that guy. There's none of that here. They can all shoot. I was talking with somebody in the program, around the program here recently, about, hey, look, they might not be the most physical team, and they're going to have to deal with some physicality battles this year that they're not going to win, but they're going to have to find ways to offset it. Being able to do that, shoot from the perimeter, have a lot of different guys. Teams are going to have to figure out who they're going to sell out to. If they don't sell out to anybody, you execute, you're going to get those shots against whoever you play. Doesn't matter who you play, and then you knock them down. That can offset some of the areas that this team might not be super strong in, and one of them is the physicality. So I like that when the guys swung it on the perimeter, they swung it. There was no think, oh, I better not pass to Jones because AJ can't shoot anymore because he's an old man and his shoulder's hurt, right? They swung it to AJ because in their world, AJ can shoot. And then he swings it to the corner to Reichen because Reichen can knock down the tray like Jonathan Powell from the corner. And Jonathan Powell's got a beautiful corner three. It's a gorgeous shot. There's a lot of guys in this team that got pretty shots. You saw Zayden Hyde and I hit one. You saw Henry Vesar hit one. He's going to shoot it. The bigs are going to shoot it. They're encouraged to shoot it, and it's part of what's going to make this team so whole. So you have to defend the floor. You have to defend a lot of the floor, and I really like that part of what they did tonight. They're not going to be a team that puts up 35, 40 threes a night. That's not the kind of team they are. They could take a lot of threes if the threes are there. And they could take a lot of threes where they're not forced if they do things the right way. And we saw that tonight. They were forced and out of sync against BYU and at times in the first half tonight. And what this does is this gives Hubert two things to point to, Reichen. When they get together tomorrow, and they may have tomorrow off, and then they practice Friday because the opener's next Monday, Hubert can show two things on film. See, here's how you don't do it, the stuff we talked about first. See, here's how you do that, the stuff we just talked about. So there are two very valuable things that came out of tonight's game that Hubert can use as teaching tools and messages that he can get across to these kids. And I think they're going to like the second one better because it's more fun. But the stuff in the first half, if that's eliminated and they are dialed in, they get a lot more of those threes in the first half too. And who knows what the margin would have been tonight. what you're talking about with dishing it around and being confident in whoever's receiving the ball. Of course, if we don't want to talk too much about last year because it's a new team, everything. But if that was something, there was a lot of the fake pass, and like you said, I mean, I don't trust this guy to hit a three. Why am I gonna spread it out and the defense isn't even gonna bite on it or anything? Like you said, everybody can shoot a three. There is a complete lack of hesitation with dishing it around, and sometimes that's gonna cause turnovers. Like maybe you're not looking. You just trust a guy to be there. And I think those are ones that you can live with, right? Those are turnovers that you can live with, being so in sync, with where everybody should be. And that's stuff that's going to fall into place.
Yeah.
And the last thing I kind of want to mention on this subject is that Carolina was still missing, arguably, their best 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
And
we're not going to go Luka bound, but you're right about that. He's sitting over there, and I looked at him a few times, and he's a catch and shoot guy with a beautiful stroke, and he's 6'6". He's a legit. I stood next to him. He's a legit 6'6". Again, you've got long guys shooting the ball too. You got the two bigs with Henry and Zayden. They can knock it down. I'm telling you, I watched Zayden in warm-ups today. He's knocking down threes, guys. It's not a bad-looking shot at all. Jonathan Powell is legit 6'6", maybe leaning towards 6'7". He can knock it down. Jaren Stevenson is legit 6'10". He can knock it down. So you've got a lot of long dudes. So you swing it, and even if someone's running out of a shooter, you've got length to get it off. Last year, they didn't have that length. And last year, the ball stalled, man. The ball was slow on the perimeter too often. That's a totally different bunch. We saw that tonight. We never saw this kind of movement last year. Even when they went to Virginia Tech and hit 18 threes, a lot of that was just catch, dribble, and shoot. This was a lot more fluid. And now everybody wants to hear about Caleb Wilson. And by the way, one more thing on Luka. We've got a lot of stuff on Luka on the board. Right now, there is no new update. It's just there's no timeline. There's working stuff out. That's where it stands right now. There's some things to do with graduating from high school in 2022 and taking college courses in Europe and how those things transfer over. So it's all getting worked out right now. A lot of people are irate and very nervous. I've been told by enough people that know something about something that they're not worried. They're not concerned this is going to stretch on for a long time. So if they're right, then there's nothing for anybody to worry about.
Yeah, very safe than sorry approach there. But I know I'm glad you mentioned that because I know that's probably something people are very worried about.
Add him to those threes tonight, man.
Yeah,
add that shooter to this.
Yeah, just there's
going to be some nights they're going to hit a ton.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen it yet, obviously, against real competition, but if it's to be what we think it's going to be, yeah. If we want to talk about a guy that can score, though, I mean, we've said his name a couple times already. Caleb Wilson is, I mean, we're sounding like a broken record here on this outlet because, we're talking about him so much, but there's a reason we're talking about him so much because this guy, through these couple of showings that we've seen him, is kind of living up to the guy that we think he's going to be, the guy that Carolina fans think he's going to be. Caleb Wilson had 23 points tonight. He had 10 rebounds, double-double, a couple assists, one turnover only. I don't know how much you read into plus minus or whatever you want to do with that. Plus minus was 25 tonight. Plus 25, obviously. I mean,
I like plus minus against good teams. Plus minus teams like this now. And by the way, there are times where plus minus can hold a lot of value. I think with him it will, because they're just better in everything they do when he's on the floor. Mm-hmm. Because he can dip his hands into literally every basketball basket, no pun intended, that you can imagine. Every little thing you could think of, he can have a part in that. And he even led the break one time against BYU. So what we saw, another double-double. He has two of those. And here's the thing. Coming in, the book on him was not a great scorer yet. Well, boy, he can do everything else. And we've seen against a club that has Final Four talent in BYU. And tonight, it doesn't matter, Division II team, he still was able to score. And you know what I was really impressed with? He was sitting at, 19 for the longest time. And he didn't try to get his. He didn't say, oh, man, look up there. I got a 19 next to my name. I got to get two more. I got to get in the 20s. Never tried to get his. The thing that might be most impressive about him, and there is a lot that's impressive. That's why we gushed about his press conference a few weeks ago, and some people thought, why are you just talking about a press conference? Because it fills in the cracks of who this dude is, right? And what you see is someone who, in a game, he could have gone for 40 if he wanted to. He could have dunked over these guys all night long, but he understood the importance of the team getting better. And also his wiring is such that he doesn't have to hunt it. It's just, there are times he's going to go create the shot for himself because he's capable of doing it. Because he said tonight after the game, I'm one of the best players in the country, so I have to do things one of the best players in the country should do. But I also think it's very important and valuable when one of the best players in the country doesn't force things and try to get to 20 because that's what matters to him. It came naturally later in the second half, right before he checked out, and I thought that was really impressive. It speaks to who he is, and if you listen to David Sisk and me, I'm talking to the listeners and viewers right now, talk about Caleb in one of our podcasts here in the last week. And also we talked about it a while ago too. David pointed out how when Caleb played in AAU, he played with the Boozer twins. And of course, they're fantastic. He accepted a sort of a secondary role on that team because the Boozers are damn good. And one of them, the bigger one, plays just like Carlos. I covered Carlos. That's how old I am. But it told you that Caleb wanted to win in AAU. And he was willing to do that, but he got better at other parts of the game. He's so used to always being the man and scoring. That gave him an opportunity to shore up other parts of his game. And you see that when he plays. You're going to see high assist numbers from him at times. And when I say high assist numbers, from a guy in his spot. You know, he's going to have some threes, going to have some fours, going to have things like that, and he's going to do it all within the framework of the team. So tonight, the dunk was magnificent. Noah's writing a piece about the dunk because his teammates afterward, when we talked to them, couldn't stop talking about the dunk. They loved it. The crowd loved it. Hubert even acknowledged, you know what, it gets the crowd going. It's an energy thing. Hubert doesn't always go there. Well, I just wanted to get back on defense is what he said when he was asked what went through his mind with the dunk. But of course, then Hubert says, yeah, it's a crowd pleaser, and it does give energy to the team. He has the ability to give energy to the team in other ways, though. He has the ability to give energy to the team by rotating defensively and blocking A.J. DeBance's shot like he did last Friday night in Salt Lake City. He has the ability to give energy to his team by if a ball's going out of bounds, he's going for it. He's going to tap it off a dude from the other team. His Tar Heels get possession. He gives the team energy that way. There's so many things that he does that can give the team energy. And the one that we're all going to remember the most are the highlight reel things, and they're part of his package too. I don't know if there's anything as a college player that he can't do. Now, he may do some things better than others, but he can do everything seemingly at least kind of well, and some things maybe really, really well. And what's going to be a really huge part of this team's development is if the kind of well stuff ends up being really well in February, in March. And if it is, and the club's growing along with him, this club has a chance to be pretty formidable. So a lot of things that have to happen for that to take place, but marking Caleb Wilson's growth, and if the team follows along with him, they're along for the ride, they're growing as well, then he's the kind of dude that can get you past a round or two in the tournament. And if everybody else is doing their job, they could be very well situated come March. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of time. Hubert is going to have to figure this group out. That's not always been his strength. Sometimes it takes a little longer for him to figure it out. But I will give him the benefit of the doubt on this. Last year took a while, but there were never great options. This year he's got options and versatility. He's going to have some decisions to make about Jaron Stevenson and Luka. He's going to have some decisions to make about how much to play Jonathan Powell, who I think is a winning ball player. And watching him in person now, the last two games, Salt Lake City and tonight, he's a winning ball player. Even Jaden Young looked terrible in the first half, shook it off, second half looked like a ball player. I mean, they've got a lot of answers here. They got a lot of options, and they got dudes who are going to push one another. And if Hubert handles this right way, and a lot of guys get their playing time, they'll continue to grow as a group. And he'll kind of figure it out, and he'll know his best 5, his best 6, his best 7. He'll know, hey, I can go small with this lineup, but their small lineup this year be bigger than last year's lineup. And then they could go super big. And he knows that, but it's going to take time. And I actually think the schedule is good that it lays out the way it does. They have a lot of teams coming in here that they ought to handle, no problem. But it gives him opportunities to do a lot of stuff with different lineups to just get a good feel and sort of synchronize them a little bit more. And that will be the mission here in the next 2 months before they get into ACC play, and have some big ones outside other than the Navies and Radfords of the world are coming in, which they should handle. But you got to like sort of the upside stuff. I tend to look at a positive in October, right, Ken, more than I look at a negative. Negatives can be fixed, and sometimes there's all kinds of reasons for them. But positives are there. It happened. It's real. Like, I'm not a guy that says, hey, that such and such overachieves. No, he didn't. He did it because he can do it. Technically, it's not overachieving if you can do it. They just kind of reached a peak or something like that. I think this team's got a lot of positives that they can achieve over time, and we've seen some snapshots in the last 2 games.
AJ, before we close it out here, I want to circle back to Caleb Wilson real quick because I've got an unofficial stat to rattle off from the old steel trap up here. Caleb Wilson shot 9 of 13 on the game from the field, shot 0 of 2 from 3. So his first 2 shots were 2s, and they were both misses, right? Meaning that on his last 9 2-point attempts, Caleb Wilson was 9 for 9, which is an really unbelievable efficiency level to score. And he was 5 for 5 from the line in a night where, especially the first half, that wasn't, it wasn't the best shooting, free throw percentage game. They ended up shooting 68% as a team, but there were times it's not really up to par for what Carolina usually is at the line, especially for a team that's so aggressive getting to the basket and aggressive rebounding. But yeah, so that's just kind of an aspect of Caleb Wilson's efficiency tonight, and to go along with what you were saying with, if he wanted to get 40, he would have had to take in a good amount more shots, but he didn't need to.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem like he wanted to. He wanted to play within the system. He wanted to play within what Coach Hubert Davis wants him to play in, and play along with his teammates and make them better by him not forcing up shots. So,
yeah, I think he's a play within the framework guy. We'll see next Friday when Kansas comes in here if the Tar Heels are challenged, like if they're challenged to where they're behind, they need buckets. We're going to kind of see, okay, does he have a little bit of that screw you in him where he could take over and say, guys, we need a couple buckets now. I'm going to get it. We're going to find out if he's got that on November 7th. He may not. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not going to play a bunch of different scenarios that may or may not play out, but that's what's so intriguing right out of the gate about having a game like that, especially with this club. We'll find out about Henry and the physicality. Kansas is always big and physical up front. We're going to find out about Kyan Evans. I think one of the questions about this team is how physical can the guards be? How athletic and physical can the point guards be? Derek Dixon, I think, is pretty physical. How athletic is he? Kyan's a little bit more athletic. How physical is he? How is he going to handle a lot of ball screens and things like that? So that stuff wasn't really challenged tonight. Some other things came up, and that was what we're going to focus on. But all of those other things will be challenged in 9 days. And I can't wait to see it because I can't wait to find out where they are at that point in time. And fans will overreact regardless, of course. And sports writers might overreact regardless as well. But that's kind of the fun of covering a team right now that a lot of us don't really know much about because we're learning these guys. We're learning about them. We're getting comfortable with who they are and how they go about things. And, I talked to Jaron up close for the first time tonight. We had him in a press conference a while ago, but that's different. So I think it's going to be really fun for us just to kind of get a feel for these guys and see them in person, just kind of see what is the mojo when they're at their best. We saw some snapshots of it tonight, and we saw some of the complete opposite. And that's what these October games are for. It gets real now. They open up in 5 nights against Central Arkansas, and then it's Kansas, and then they got a few patsies before they go to Fort Myer, and they play St. Bonaventure, which is a solid A-10 team, Atlantic 10 team, and they got Michigan State. So it's here, man. Basketball's here for a lot of people. This has got to be an amazing diversion from the mess that is Carolina football. Certainly for sports writers too, but it's always exciting when Carolina basketball starts, especially right now because there's so much newness and so many dudes that just kind of pop when you watch them play. There's just a lot of intrigue throughout the roster. So I'm glad we were here tonight. I'm glad you got your first opportunity on the baseline. Did a fantastic job. You can do a lot of the 3 things with us as the season goes on. You're going to be here for a lot of games in the Dean Dome. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for me. I'm excited for us. I'm excited for the fans. I'm excited for this team. And there's very few things a lot better than college basketball, and we're rocking it now.
That's right. Exhibition's over. Real deal starts Monday. We are just before 11 p.m. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. trying to get this bad boy up before Halloween Eve, the 30th.
We actually did
October.
30 minutes on this. We did a half hour. See,
unless you come up with something real quick, we're at 20, we're just over 29:30. So
okay, I ramble. I rambled too much again. That's what I do. I ramble.
No, we're good. I mean, we're getting out of here. We're keeping it concise today. You know, we're keeping it within the frameworks of what we need.
I had a 5-hour energy right before we came out here. So
okay, yeah. Maybe we should just go ahead and get off then, or else we're going to be here until Halloween. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to hit the subscribe button. Basketball season, like we've been talking about, just starting up. We're getting into the real thing. Go ahead and hit that bell. Get alerted on it. Daily YouTube content. And head over to the website, TarHeal247.com. More daily content coming at you. If you want to hear about football, hear about basketball, some other sports coming up that we're getting involved in. So a lot of exciting stuff happening. Thank you again for tuning in. I've been Ryken Fuller. He has been across the court, Andrew Jones. And we'll catch you next time.